Hi guys, welcome back to the Take It Back podcast. On this episode, I'll be talking with Zach Shattuck. We hope you guys all enjoy. Hi everyone, I'm here with Zach Shattuck, who's on the Paralympic national team. Hi Zach, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Amanda. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat tonight.
So Zach, how old are you and what is your disability?
I am 28 years old and I have what's known as dwarfism, which means when I was born, uh, like there was a genetic mutation and it resulted in me growing slower. My bones grew slower, and so I'm only 4 feet 6 inches tall.
What is the worst and best part of having dwarfism?
Ooh, the worst and the best part of having dwarfism. I would say the worst part of having dwarfism is probably being limited in what I could do athletically into what I wanted to do. Um, and maybe career options. President was never really a good option because of podiums, and NBA wasn't really going to be in my future, even though I liked basketball and other kind of sports a lot. Um, and I think the best part about having dwarfism is it's a spotlight, and it's in the same way that you can get negativity from being different. Like being different casts a light on me, and I'm able to sort of draw in the attention of people and kind of share that, and teach them about it, and have make lots of friends with the same condition. So just getting to be me is the spotlight of having dwarfism, and you learn to love
Yeah.
it.
Is it hard to go through life as a child until now with others looking at you because of dwarfism, and how did you get past that?
It can definitely be challenging growing up and having a condition, especially one that's very like visible. As a kid, I often struggled with people saying things and kind of like bullying and pointing and laughing, and people just didn't really understand like who I was. So that was challenging, but I thankfully had a good group of parents and friends that were very supportive and had my back no matter what, and kind of taught me just continue to be who I am, and those that want to be around me will be around me, and those who don't won't. So,
If you could go back in time, would you change of not having a disability or not?
oof. I've been asked this question a lot before. So like getting to go back and change it. I think in some parts of my life, like in some ways, I would want the almost like the Cinderella effect, where I got maybe like 12 hours of like instead of being 4'6", I was 6'4". Like that would be there's things I would want to do, and just to see the world that way. Um, but no, I don't think I would change it. I've gotten to travel all over the world. I've competed internationally. I've won medals. I've made so many friends. Um, I've had the life that anyone kind of could wish they would want and have, and I wouldn't change that.
We talked about your worst part of having a disability, but what is the most challenging part of it?
The most challenging part of having dwarfism for me is, I think, feeling restricted in like what I can do and what I can't do. Um, People with dwarfism tend to struggle with some like mobility and like range of motion. Um, and so a lot of the like it's hard to keep up sometimes with friends that are able to run like on a soccer field, for example. Like it's hard to just kind of stay at that same pace without feeling the effects. So that part's always been kind of tough. And then yeah, I mean that'd be the main thing. And then just not being short when being tall is kind of seen as the you know the be all end all be all.
Yeah. Where did you go to college and what was your major?
I went to college at Frostburg State University, and I originally was majoring in zoology and wildlife studies, and then I switched to recreation and park management. So that's what I got my degree in there.
How was switching from zoology to the one you got your degree in?
It was tough. My whole life, I've always loved like the outdoors and nature. And so thinking that I was going to be like the next Steve Irwin and getting involved with people and working with animals, but I didn't put the same effort that I probably did into my athletics uh, attitude as I did towards my like college classes at first. And biologies and chemistries like sort of knocked me down a peg. So I switched to being something. Parks and Rec was more of a social uh, place, and I still got to work outside and run programs, and that kind of I found the best of what I could do and what I liked.
Nice. How was adapting to the college life at the time with your disability?
It was a challenge to go into a new place. Every time I go somewhere new, there's always that kind of like scary gut feeling of what to expect. People seeing you for the first time, how are they going to react? And it took a couple weeks probably to get comfortable, but I joined the swim team after my first like month and a half on campus, and that was really like a big move for me because it gave me a group that I could connect with, and then that from there I could expand.
Where are you living now, and how long have you been there?
I currently live in Southern Maryland, down near the University of or St. Mary's College in Southern Maryland. Uh, and I've lived here for the last 9 months. No, 6 months. 6 months.
Cool.
Yeah,
Are you liking it there?
I am. Yeah,
What
it's been a good time here. Weather's getting warmer. There's a lot to kind of do down on the water. Um, and everything's been pretty fun.
cool. When did you get into the Paralympic movement and how?
So I got into the Paralympics back in 2014, 2015. I went to the World Dwarf Games, which is held like every 4 years for people with dwarfism and like all over the world. And it was in East Lansing, Michigan. And while we were there, there was an Australian family, and they happened to be sitting next to my parents. And we were one of the days of competition was swimming, and I had signed up because I never really swam, but I knew how to swim, and ended up doing like relatively well and raced. I raced against this Australian guy who's, and his parents asked my parents, I was like, "Has your son training for the Paralympics?" And they were like, "What?" And so they kind of gave my parents the introduction to it, and then my dad did some research and found out it was this like major global thing, and brought it to my attention, and we talked about it, and it was something that we were like, yeah, we should look into this more. So then I joined the Frostburg swim team my freshman year, and that was kind of how I got my start in swimming. Was talking to Justin.
Yes, Justin. And then from there, what did you do after joining the swim team? What was your first Paralympic meet then? After
Yeah, so I joined the college team in the start of my freshman year in 2014, and then my first international, like my first Paralympic meet, I believe, was at Can American Championships, and it was in Toronto, and then that was quickly followed by the I made the Pan American Championship team, which also was held in Toronto. So those were sort of my first two like meets that introduced me to parasport.
and then after that, you went to 2016 trials, right?
I did, yeah. I went to the trials in 2016. I was a sophomore in college, and unfortunately did not make that team. I was the second alternate, I believe, to go to Rio.
Mhm.
But that was a really cool experience. It was my first trials, first time kind of understand like realizing like what it would take to get there, and what level that those swimmers were at. Um, and it was a big kind of motivator for me moving forward.
Did you start swimming at Frostburg, or when did you start swimming actually?
Yeah, so I didn't swim competitively until I was at Frostburg. I grew up, swimming in the backyard pools with friends, and my parents had put me in swim lessons as a kid. And we also have like a family cabin that we owned with my grandparents and some other my mom's like my aunts and uncles in West Virginia. So I grew up on the water. Like I was very comfortable on the water, but didn't actually competitively swim until I was at Frostburg, and my like third or fourth week on campus, I went and talked with Coach Anderson about, hey, here's this opportunity about the Paralympics. Can you give me, can you just give me pointers? Like, can you give me a little bit of advice? If you watch me swim, like, can you just say, hey, here's what you're doing or what you might want to do? And thankfully, Frostburg was kind of small at the time. It was only his second season, and he was like, why don't you just join the team? So I ended up joining. I spent the first probably a month and a half, 2 months in the deep end, learning how to swim with one of our assistant coaches, like teaching me how to do a flip turn, how to swim freestyle, how to do breaststroke, the whole bit.
Nice. And was that a great experience overall?
It was that experience was definitely interesting because sports have always been something that have kind of naturally come easier for me. My first word was ball, and I grew up just loving sports. Like I played soccer, basketball, baseball. I wrestled in high school. Um, anytime like sports were on, like I always wanted to just go play. So to do something that was kind of different in the form of swimming and not being good at it like right away was definitely like frustrating because it's an effortless sport in some ways. Like you have to get the technique right before you can start actually making progress. So that part was definitely kind of a made you rethink, and it was definitely challenging in the beginning.
I bet. After college, what did you do after next?
So after I was going and getting ready to graduate, and Coach Anderson actually asked me if I was around for dinner. And from there, he told me that he was going to coach at his alma mater at the University of Mary Washington. So he asked me if I would join him and be one of his assistant coaches, and also gave me the opportunity to keep training leading up to Tokyo in 2020. So from 20, like I guess, fall of 2018 and 2019 into 2020, I was an assistant coach at the University of Mary Washington.
Nice. And then when you were coaching, you also swam, and then leading up to Tokyo trials, how was the adjustment on that?
That was I Some of the best years of my life were spent on UMW's campus and working with that team. I had an interesting schedule because I was a 23-year-old, 22-year-old graduate, working with 21, 20, 19-year-old kids, and so I was still able to connect and work with them, and that group was very accommodating of me and knew what I was trying to accomplish, and so for that, I'm forever grateful for that. Those swimmers, but it was awesome. They pushed me to new limits, new heights, and the coaching was something that I realized I was passionate about. Like I didn't know that that was something I would be interested in, and Anderson gave me the opportunity, and I took it, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm still doing it to this day.
Nice. How was Tokyo trials?
Tokyo Trials was pretty wild, because leading up to that, 2020 in itself was a crazy year. We had finished the season at UMW, and then a month later, everyone was being sent home. And so I remember like where I was and what I was doing when the games got canceled, and that was kind of a pretty big shock. And so not knowing, like, everything you'd kinda trained for and worked for was being put on hold, and you weren't sure if it was actually gonna happen or if they were just gonna push straight to Paris. But thankfully, news came out, 2021, we had the trials, and I was much more confident going into that trials, like, having the experience from 2016 and just feeling a lot more confident as a swimmer. And I threw down my best time that I've ever done in the 100 breaststroke at Paralympic trials, and that was my selection event, and I ended up being selected to go to Tokyo.
And how is Tokyo for you?
Tokyo was a really unique experience because it was, first Paralympic Games, and you kind of hear all these stories from like the veterans of like what it's like, what to expect, and you go and this is a completely different atmosphere because you're in a bubble. You're in this athlete village, but there's no like your family's not there, your friends aren't there to watch, like the fans aren't in the stands to watch you swim. So in many ways it was like it was exciting and hyped, but it was also off. And I think I took a lot in and like extended my energies in ways that I didn't need to, which led to me not competing to the best of my ability. I had two best times when I was there and kind of off of it, like the 200 IM, the 400 free. But my main races in the 100 breaststroke and 50 fly, I didn't do as well as I would have liked. Um, so, a learning experience, like first games under the belt, like it was awesome to go, and I get to now call myself a Paralympian. And moving forward, we're trying to just again learn off those experiences and use them going into the summer's trials.
Nice. Are you more
I would
comfortable
say
with your
so. Yeah,
disability with joining the Paralympics?
yeah. I would say with my disability, I have a I would recommend to those, like, with my condition, like, joining, in the sense that I have grown comfortable. I think it can be a little bit of a scary process in the beginning if you're not really sure, like, what it's like overall, but it's in a way, it's very, like, you get to see the world kind of in a more relaxed way because you don't have to pretend to be someone you're not.
Mhm.
I don't have to live in a world that, you know for the most part, is designed for average sized people.
Mhm.
And, when I go to a Paralympic meet, there's lots of other people, athletes with some variation of physical or intellectual disabilities. And, you can see like they kind of can relate to some of the experiences you have. So definitely, those are always, I like going to Paralympic meets a lot.
What is your biggest accomplishment in the Paralympics so far?
Ooh, that's a good question. My biggest accomplishment in the Paralympics so far. I think my biggest personal accomplishment would, I mean, probably qualifying for Tokyo and being on the, you know, I believe I was one of the first male dwarf swimmers in a long time. So that was kind of important to me and something that I like appreciated and look back on. And then I think trying to just set like, be an example for people in the movement, like leaving it better than I found it. I tend to try to speak up, and when we have team camps and groups and different programs with younger athletes, like someone that if you want to talk to, you can, and just a voice for the team.
What are your future goals in the sport?
Oof. I think future goals, like I want to just swim to my like the best of my ability. I want to know that I kind of I I think with swimming, I'm on and off again. Like I have never been the greatest trainer because I always like to have more fun, and sometimes like I could get bored or distracted in sets and didn't put myself to that like maximum potential. And I think as I've gotten older, I've realized like I don't have time to mess around and do that anymore. It's like now or never, and kind of figuring out what my body can do and pushing myself and just giving it my all one last time.
My last question for you is, what do you want others to know about the Paralympic movement?
I would like others to know that the Paralympics is an eye-opening experience into the world that you otherwise might like laugh at. There's amazing stories and athletes who do amazing and incredible like feats in their sports that otherwise people would just not know about. So highly recommend to tune in and watch this summer. And I recommend not just swimming, but like all sports, and because there's you'll be left like you'll be better off for it.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Zach.
Yeah, of course.